everyone. I'd like to introduce our speaker for today. It's Philip Andrew. Philip is new to our Focus Suites. He and his son moved in about the same week.
Second week in August, about, yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So
still kind of filtering in, but yeah.
He's been involved for many, many months. I think about the time I started, was maybe about the time you became involved with book club and went through the focus coaching and all of that. So Philip has a background. I told him I was going to talk about this because we just talked about it yesterday. In broadcasting, worked a lot in radio. Did some play-by-play for Legion baseball, if you can imagine that, and a lot of high school sports around the area, so I was very familiar with a lot of the small towns in Nebraska. He took a turn in his professional career and took on the responsibilities of being a stay-at-home dad and became involved in that network. And kind of that's what developed your FiscalDad coaching initially.
A little bit, yep.
Yep. And so that's what his business is that he's here in the Focus Suites with. And he also owns a cleaning business. And so I'll let you take that away. Oh, and he's also a member of Toastmasters. So.
Yeah, so like Amy said, I actually have a journalism degree from the University of Nebraska. And we have another one. Another one who's
Broadcast 86.
me too, 93. So ended up working in a lot of, like Amy said, a lot of the small towns around Nebraska. Ended up at 44th and O here in Lincoln for 3 to 4 years. Decided that that business really didn't work for me. Tried some other things. Actually ended up managing sporting goods stores for about 4 years, which I kind of enjoyed. I'm an athlete. I enjoy coaching, and so it was kind of a natural fit. And then in 2000, the kind of the parent company of the sporting goods company that I worked for went bankrupt, and within about 10 months the chain was shut down. So I was kind of looking around at different places. Shields was coming in around the same time. Dick's was expanding a little bit nationwide. They had come to our store. Weren't able to figure out a kind of a purchase plan type of a thing. Sports Authority was around then. And around the same time, Ann, my wife, had gotten a small promotion. My daughter was around 3, and because I worked in retail, I had to work weekends, I had to work evenings, so I had days off during the week a lot. So I would have my daughter. She was in daycare maybe 20, 25 hours a week at the most. And we just kind of sat down and talked about how can we do this, taking her out of daycare. I'm used to being, taking care of her. Went through the process of doing that, and then I started doing cleaning work as a side hustle. It was very convenient. I could do it evenings and weekends. My wife would work the regular kind of 8 to 5, Monday through Friday work, and that worked out really well. If things came up where, we had medical bills or car, Amy and I were just talking about car maintenance. Don't get me started. But I would pick up some work delivering for Da Vinci's. If any of you guys were around when Da Vinci's was here at East Park, just kind of different things like that, being flexible. Ended up having two more kids, 2 boys, and my son Thomas, who she mentioned, is moved in here with me. He's 20. He has Electric Studios HQ, which he does a lot of video production, video content, makes thumbnails. Like if you go on YouTube and the thumbnail catches your attention, he works on designing those. So I got involved. Let's see. When I had Thomas, I realized how isolating being a stay-at-home dad was. And stay-at-home moms, I've met a lot as well, and they go through this. And I found out about this a national group that a professor at a college in Chicago, I believe he had been a stay-at-home dad while he was getting his doctorate, and he realized there's no support systems for stay-at-home dads. It was pretty rare when he started doing it in the early to mid-90s. So he just kind of put the word out and started finding other dads who needed that kind of connection. So they started doing kind of a conference called the At-Home Dad Convention in Chicago. I went, my first one in 2003, and it was a great time, met a lot of guys, and I realized that I probably needed to create a community here in Lincoln, so I started Lincoln Dads. Through that, I found another at-home dad who was in Ralston at the time, Mike Ness. He wanted to start a group in Omaha, and we just kind of decided, let's combine. Let's combine the cities. There's strength in numbers, so to speak, and we would do. He would do stuff in Omaha. I'd do stuff in Lincoln. We would combine, different times, meet at Mahoney State Park, those type of things. And through that, got involved with a national organization, started getting involved with those conventions, ended up running the convention for a couple years, and continued to operate my cleaning business. About 8 years ago, as the kids got older, started to expand, kind of formally formed the cleaning business. Had been doing it as a kind of independent contractor and, whatever I could pick up. And that's how I knew about this place. And I think Brooke was here, although we didn't interact maybe too much at that time, but took some classes through SCORE, through Nebraska Business Developmental, that were offered here on, how to create a business plan, how to, what's the difference between independent contractor and a W-2 employee, all those things that you need to learn about a business. So I took classes over here and became and that really helped. And over the years have kind of expanded it and contracted it as like, I've talked with Amy a lot because she has kids who are athletes. I coached a lot of sports, a lot of my kids' sports. And in 2009, when my youngest started kindergarten, I was out at the Pioneers Park Nature Center volunteering for an event called Spooktacular, which they don't do anymore. And was just chatting with some of the management there, and I said, yeah, my youngest in kindergarten all day. I don't know if I'm going to expand the cleaning business. Do I just go work at Da Vinci's over lunch hour, that type of thing. So the director there, kind of out of the blue, contacted me and said, would you be interested in being a teacher naturalist? You could drop the kids off at school. You do the kids come out on the field trips. You could teach. You'll be done at 2. Go pick up the kids. We know that you're the dad if somebody's sick. We understand that you have to stay home. And sure, why not? And the first kind of spring session of, I think it was 2009, it was a lot of trial and error because I don't have like I said, I have a journalism degree. I don't have an education degree. I don't have a fisheries and wildlife, natural resources. So it was a huge learning curve, but as I kind of settled into it, I really enjoyed it. And I did that along with my cleaning business up until the pandemic, which I think a lot of us have talked a little bit about how that was kind of a resetting point, right, for a lot of people. Some people good, some people bad. And I realized that at age 50, my cleaning business, I couldn't sustain it physically. So I needed to make some changes. I knew that the Nature Center, I had no idea when they were going to come back. And one thing so in the time after I left radio, I had worked for an investment company. I was licensed to sell, securities, insurance. I enjoyed working with people on their money and that type of thing. But in those days, the kind of the commission structure and the quotas was very difficult. I think the failure rate around that time in that business was about 97%. Well, I was one of the 97%. And so I always kept that in the back of my mind that if I could do something different, but still meet people and help people, if that came along, I would be interested in doing it without the pressure of the quotas and the commission. And so I started thinking back to that. And there was another thing that I noticed about money, and Jody and I think we talked about this, is there's such negativity and negative emotions surrounding the subject of money. It's everybody's an expert, but nobody wants to talk about their own, right? They want to tell you how to do stuff, whether it's on social media, talk radio, the guys yelling into the camera on CNBC, telling you to do this, or you're an idiot, that. And as I was doing the Lenoma Dads, the stay-at-home dads group, and I was involved in the national convention, what was interesting was that guys would, in a small group like this, there might be 10 or 15 dads, right, from all around the world. We used to get guys come in, and they would share, their struggles with maybe their spouse, in-laws, maybe every time they saw them, when you're going to get a job, those type of things, be very open about it. And but then I would be, walking to the car after going to the Omaha Zoo with the kids, and Dad would pull me aside and say, look around, make sure nobody can hear it. Phil, are you guys doing okay with money? Because man, we're struggling. And it was a nervousness about it. And I had that background with Waddell and Reed a little bit, so I could help them, but I didn't feel, very comfortable in doing that. So that kind of, through the pandemic, as I had time to think about back on those things, is through working at the Nature Center and coaching, I realized I'm a teacher. That's kind of what I do. That's my strengths. It took me 45 years to figure that out or whatever, but that's what I do. And so if I could play the role of a teacher, not have the commission structure, and just do fee-based coaching, work on some classroom workshops. And another thing I think is through social media, and I've kind of debated this in my head a little bit. I've basically gotten off of all social media. I don't know about you guys, if anybody's active on it, but it just drives me up a wall. All the negativity and all the the arguing and the fake conflict, and a lot of it does surround money. And I kind of thought, do I just use other channels to market what I do? Just join places like here, meet people one-on-one, things like Centersphere, or go to the chamber events, those type of things, and just kind of build that way, which is how I kind of built my cleaning business a little bit, kind of one-on-one, referrals, those type of things. And I kind of, in talking with my son Thomas, who's pretty savvy with that type of stuff, is I think that there are multiple avenues that I can use to spread positivity and information that's not gender stereotypes and this ridiculous millennials versus boomers stuff. I mean, come on. Nobody cares if you go to get coffee. Nobody's complaining about that. But yet you go on social media and it's like somebody goes through and gets a coffee. Okay, boomer, that's not out there. I don't care whether you go get coffee. And I'm not a boomer anyway, but so I think if I'm fed up with it, and the people that I talk to are fed up with it, there's got to be other people out there who are fed up with it. So if I can use social media and one-on-one coaching and classrooms and networking and that type of thing, maybe to try to turn that a little bit, even though I'm just in Lincoln, Nebraska, I'm one person, but there's got to be other people who are sick and tired of it as well that may respond to that message. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now is I'm in the infant stages of this FiscalDad coaching thing. That's kind of my mission, my philosophy is to kind of take the stigma and the negativity out of talking about money, things like Jody does. There are people out there who can guide you and help you. And it doesn't have to be constant fights with your spouse. If you're a young person who's nervous that you don't have a house when you're 23, it's okay. There's a lot of things out there that are very negative that make you feel anxious, and I just think that there's other ways. It's not, So that's kind of my philosophy on starting this business. It's my company, so I can make the values, I can make the priorities. I don't have to work for a large company, that type of thing. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, to catch you up. But.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So you've been involved in several of our book clubs. What are some books or authors, other influencers, if you want to say, that have impacted maybe your life, how you've set up your business? What are some resources that you've really kind of fallen back on?
One of the books that I tend to go back to is Dr. Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. When I was in school at Nebraska, I worked quite a bit in radio while I was in school. I really wasn't prioritizing my schedule. I wasn't paying attention to detail what stuff I needed to do. And I was put on academic probation because I was deciding to do 10 different things and not prioritize. And that book had come out, I think, in '88 maybe. Okay. And I had a academic counselor that when I got readmitted, you have to kind of sit down and talk with somebody and thankfully they were honest with me. And they said, you're too smart to be failing, But the problem isn't the brains or the intelligence, it's you're not organized, you're not paying attention to detail, those type of things. So those have stuck with me, kind of, especially those first 3 steps. Proactive people are the most successful and effective. Active is not. Active is the hamster in the wheel, right? The hamster in the wheel is active, but it's not going anywhere. And the second thing is you begin with the end in mind. And we've talked about this in book club a little bit. I think goals are important, but I think even more important is understanding, just having a vision of where you're going. It doesn't always have to be concrete. And Brooke and we've talked about this in book club a little bit. Goals are important in setting kind of benchmarks that you want to hit. But I think just understanding the direction where you're headed. And then another thing that we've talked about a lot in book club and some of the authors is you put first things first. You have to have priorities that determine how you're spending your time. So those 3 things have, whether I'm coaching a 5th grade basketball or organizing the At-Home Dads Convention, those kind of 3 principles, to me, if I follow them, I have success. When I get away from those and I stray from those, which we all do, we all get lazy, that's when I struggle. So that would be one of them. One that's very personal is Tuesdays with Maury. I know that's been, 96, 97, it's been out, and if you guys don't know the story, Maury Schwartz died of ALS. And one of his students, Mitch Albom, who was a sports writer in Detroit, who I grew up near Detroit, so I grew up reading Mitch Albom's sports. And there was a writer strike, and Mitch had heard that Maury had ALS, and he would go back and visit him on Tuesdays. And Maury, this was his last dissertation, and he would recite, words of wisdom to Mitch. And the thing is that my mom had ALS, had passed away of ALS. My sister, I think, went back and found out that my mom and Maury Schwartz passed away on the same day. So that book for me can be very difficult to read sometimes, but other times after that passes, the wisdom seeps in, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I haven't read that book. I've heard a lot about it. And isn't it interesting that both of those books, if you want to say, are timeless?
They are. Yep.
Like they're, and I think it's always good to keep up. That's what I appreciate with book club is keep up with new books, things that are coming out. But we could also go back and we could read some books that have been out for a long time. We're reading right now in book club Atomic Habits, which is I feel like it's going to be almost as impactful for me as the Brené Brown book was.
Yeah.
So I think that's impactful. So you've been in Lincoln for quite a while, went to school here. What are some of your favorite places to go to, some local businesses that you like to give your business to? What are some of your favorites? Well,
obviously I'm a little biased, so the Pioneers Park Nature Center is one of the tops for me. If I run into so many people in Lincoln who have never been out there. And it drives me nuts. But unfortunately, including like city council members and people who, I won't name names, but who decide the budget of it.
Right,
But, yeah.
of the major.
So I think the Lincoln Children's Zoo, especially when my kids were younger, as it's expanded, has been a great place. As far as businesses, we live in the Meadow Lane area, so we've watched Honest Abe's, grow from basically a place where you couldn't sit down. There was no room. You just got, and the line out the door was for takeout. We've watched that grow into, 4 locations now, I think, which is awesome.
And they do different restaurants now too.
Yeah. Like Sebastian's Table, right? Yeah. Just so that's really great to see some. And really, at the time when they went into the Meadow Lane Shopping Center, it was kind of struggling at the time. There wasn't a lot of spaces in there. And it's been part of kind of the revitalization of that area. So we enjoy Honest Abe's. Both Ann and I and our family, we are gluten-free. We found that out about 5 years ago, and it's really improved our life. And we really appreciate the restaurants that do cater to, that do offer, other gluten-free options for us. I'm biased again on another company. Is a good friend of mine started Toys from the Past. If you guys know Toys from the Past. Started in a little place over in Arapahoe Village, and my friend Dan, who I met one of the first people I met when I moved to Nebraska from Michigan to go to school, he and his brother Mike, they survived the pandemic and flourished through the pandemic by embracing social media and online marketing and shipping through eBay and all that stuff. And they just moved into a bigger a third location, into a new place up on Cornhusker with a warehouse because they're so busy. So yeah, there's those small businesses like that are started by Lincoln people who you guys support, through the Entrepreneur Center, and I guess probably those couple would be ones that I would like to highlight.
Okay. Great. Does anybody have any questions for Philip?
Chopsticks has really good food.
Chopsticks? Oh, great.
Yeah.
I live near Chopsticks.
Okay.
1 or 2 nights a week, in fact, we get a single portion, we divide it. Because,
There you go.
Because there's
So much food.
There's so much.
We will try that because we
And it's a young couple,
Okay.
an Asian couple that started that, and they pivoted through pandemics where you could order, and they'd set it, you'd go there, and they even had a place where you could pay through like a window, and they'd set your food outside. I mean, so they stayed open literally through pandemic.
I was very disappointed with them because they used to be out in our area. Their first location was out on Northwest 48, and at the time, that was one of the only restaurants that we had out there. And then they left, and I was very sad about that. But I'm glad that they have.
I'm very happy about it.
I know you're very happy about it, John. So that'll be a give and take
No,
about
I
that.
said, but
Yeah, we'll give-
thirds of their menus.
My wife has been there and really enjoys it, but I haven't been. Yeah, and some of the kind of Chinese or Asian places, some of them do it really well. And we've kind of went around. Another place that I'd like to point out, even though I don't drink anymore, is Cerro Cider, which is down right off of Antelope Valley, I think it is, right, Antelope Valley.
That was actually listed in this month's Midwest Living magazine.
Okay, I wondered where that was.
Yeah. Where is it at?
It's down kind of by the Telegraph District, off of Antelope Valley. It might be M Street, I think. But everything there is gluten-free, all the cider. So those type of businesses that are willing to adapt, like Honest Abe's did during the pandemic, Toys from the Past did, and when we travel to some other places, there are a lot more gluten-free options. And it's kind of nice that those local businesses are now realizing that it's. I hear a lot of people, make fun of people who go gluten-free, like it's some sort of fad or whatever. No, it's real. I have,
Well, and you were just talking about this morning, the impact that had on you. And I would admit that I probably am one that I wouldn't joke about it, but
Yeah.
like I don't know that I could go gluten-free, but if I had to, if the
Yeah,
physician had told me that was my choice, but that made a huge impact on
Oh yeah,
his life.
I used to have chronic pain in my knees and ankles, and I was told by doctors that it's just because I do physical work, and I grew up in a neighborhood where we played tackle football with no pads. We played basketball on hard surfaces with. Anybody remember the old Chuck Connors basketball shoes that had no support? Well, think about jumping on those for 2 hours a day. The impact it has on your body. And I was just told, well, it's because you were an athlete when you were younger and you have a physical job.
And you're getting older.
Yeah,
Right? That's
yeah.
the reason, right?
So,
Tell me about it.
so let's prescribe you pain medicine or whatever. And so we finally went looking for answers, and yeah, it's improved greatly. Yeah.
Where'd you grow up in Michigan?
Northwest of Detroit in a little town called Frankenmuth.
Really?
Yeah.
We'll talk after.
Oh,
My family lives there now.
they live there now?
That's
Okay.
it. They go to St. Lawrence.
Oh, okay. Yep.
We'll talk.
All right, we'll talk.
That is a small world.
And it's maybe 8,000 people.
Except on weekends.
Well, now that's a whole nother story. Yeah.
It's 30 to 50,000.
Wow.
Yeah, it's the #1 tourist attraction in Michigan, like more than Mackinac Island, more than like Henry Ford Museum. It's an old German settlement town, and back in probably late 1800s, early 1900s, there was a hotel that the Zender family started a restaurant,
Yep.
and that grew. And I think there was a sibling rivalry. It's been a long time since I've lived there, so I'm.
Okay.
I think maybe the brother started a competing one across the street.
Bavarian Inn.
The Bavarian Inn and Zender's, yeah. And I worked at Bavarian Inn in high school, so yeah. This is an interesting conversation between us two. It's.
Well, then there's Bronner.
Well, yeah, and then Wally Bronner was a guy who started making Christmas ornaments in his garage, which has grown to a worldwide, and the store and it's Christmas. It's open, I think, every day but Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's Christmas stuff.
Okay.
And it's probably got to be 200,000 square foot facility.
5 buildings.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because they do a lot of online and shipping and things, but the actual retail portion of it, I think, is it's got to be the size of, say, like the New Shields, Christmas,
I compare
everything.
Bronner's to Christmas stores as Nebraska Furniture Mart is furniture.
That's a good one.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
I mean, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's humongous.
So that
You can
draws
drive there
that
and
many
drive
Yeah.
on the night and you have the whole
Yeah, so
place on.
when you, in the summertime, they also, because it's German, they have a lot of, like the Bavarian Festival draws hundreds of thousands of people to the city, this little, and I think when I was there it was maybe 5,000, it may be up to 8, and traffic jams from the interstate for miles to get in. So when I had to work at the Bavarian Inn, I lived maybe a mile away. I would just have to ride my bike or leave like 45 minutes early. It's a very interesting little town.
Google it.
Yeah, it's called Frankenmuth, Michigan.
I don't know if you know now, they have it called fun boats. They're little electric boats. And you go for an hour and they do wine and chocolate pairings on that.
Oh.
It is silent and you go up the river and.
Yeah.
Of course, well, we'll talk.
It was a nice place to grow up as a kid because it was a small town, very safe, good schools.
but close to a bigger city.
Yeah, we were you're 10, 15 minutes away from Flint and Saginaw, and then Detroit's northern suburbs are maybe 45 to an hour. When the Pistons and the Lions played at the Silverdome, it was a 45, 50-minute drive. To get downtown Detroit's a little longer, of course, because of traffic.
Airport's about an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, so yeah, the Detroit airport's on the west side of Detroit, so you can kind of skip around. So it's about an hour and a half, yeah. So I grew up going to Tiger games and all that stuff. So, But at the time when I left in '88, the economy there had been really bad. You know, yeah, with the auto plants, you know, shutting down and things, and Frankenmuth, because of the tourist industry, is a little.
It's literally an island.
It is, yeah, yep,
Economic island.
yeah, yep. Mm-hmm.
Does anybody have any other questions?
Yep.
Jim?
What have you learned from your children?
Great question.
Well,
I mean, it sounds like you absorb and observe and learn.
Yeah.
And cogitate, and what have you learned from your children?
boy, there's a lot. That's a hard one to pin down. Specifically, I think that what I've learned from them is that they're all individuals. They all have their own skill sets, their own personalities, their own. And Ann and I have always tried to realize that, you know, never say, why don't you be more like your brother? That type of stuff is kind of, you know, they all have their different gifts. Thomas, who's in the, you know, an office here, you know, is very creative, plays a bunch of instruments. And so I've listened to loud guitar music because, you know, for hours at a time, which is fine because he's really good. But, you know, Mary was very athletic, you know, was a track athlete at Wesleyan. And that experience of traveling around all parts of your neck of the woods in Iowa and, you know, going to all these small colleges and watching her compete was fun. And I coached a lot of her teams. And I think patience is one thing that they've taught me, because everybody grows and develops at their own pace. So I think if I would settle on one thing, it'd be patience. And it's something that I've had to learn over the years to be better at. So,
Makes two of us.
yeah,
Makes three of us.
I think we all,
And
yeah.
I really like what you said about each of our kids are different.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's hard in some situations to not compare them.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
they do, you know, that can relate to how we work in our daily lives. Everybody's different. Everybody has their own strengths. We had our kids take the Gallup strengths.
Oh, did you?
Kids.
Yeah, yeah.
And it probably was better for us than it was for them, because I think they were too young maybe, and we didn't reinforce it as much as we could have. But yeah, everybody brings their own talents and strengths to the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it kind of drives me nuts when I hear people talk about like a family, and those siblings are so different, you know. And, well, yeah, no doubt. Yeah, of course they are. Are you the same as your sister?
Right.
No.
Yep, Quinn.
And so, learning that from your kids,
Uh-huh.
individuality, how do you apply that then to your teaching and your business?
Well, the kind of the bread and butter of what I want to do is one-on-one coaching, and so you get to know people. You have to, you know, build a relationship that way. When you're doing, like you guys, like, you know, you're teaching a class. When you're doing classes, or, you know, if I'm at the nature center and I have 40 kids, I have to speak in generalities. You know, it's hard to get to know people individually, but I think taking the time to ask questions and listen, I think that we've lost, I feel like, with social media, like I was talking about with mass media, is I think we've lost the focus on the individual. There's so many labels: millennial, baby boomer, you know, woke, or, you know, all these different labels that are applied to people, gender, and it puts people in a label and a box. And I can see how people feel that way, especially like with money, or if you're in a business, you know, those type of things. That, oh, I'm in this business. You know, I have this much student loan debt, so I'm this. You know. Now there are shared experiences, right? We need to find communities and things, but the focus on the individual is, for me, is one of the driving forces for doing this. Because I can get to know people, a couple or a young person who's, has student loan debt, really get to know their individual situation. They may think, oh, well, I have student loan debt and my friends have student loan debt and what's the use? But really it's about your household, you as an individual that I'm interested in. Now, how I can reach those people might be media, social media. It might be YouTube like this, but my focus is always on the individual. Yeah.
And I think when you talk about specifically men who don't want to talk about certain issues, having money or their family, that's breaking down those barriers and knowing that there may be going into, if you have a client that comes in, that those may be barriers that he has.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because Jody and I went through kind of the same training program, and you're taught, like in general, men see money as competition, like a scoreboard, and women tend to see money as security. Well, being an at-home dad and meeting a bunch of at-home dads, I know that is flipped in a lot of couples. And so if you go by those gender stereotypes and you're a coach or you're trying to help people, you're not helping them because you don't realize what's actually driving those people.
You may drive them further.
Exactly.
To being able to talk about that. So.
Do you still have your cleaning business? Or
I do. Yeah, I still operate it, and it's commercial, and so my goal, speaking of patience, is in 2 years, I want to be able to build the coaching business up to the point where it'll, replace the cleaning business. If it happens faster, great, but that's kind of, because I understand, building a client-based business is going to take some time. Yep.
Speaking of that, as you're growing your business, I'm curious about how people set up their pricing structures and what kind of research that you did, and you decide or where you're at in that process.
So through the training program that Jody and I went through, they do continuing training, and they have like kind of these Zoom calls and where they invite veteran coaches who went through the program even 20 years ago and who are doing it successfully. And they will come on, and that's one of the issues that a lot of people have when they start is, how much do I charge? I'm just starting, and those type of things. And so I kind of take their input. I know that so I'm starting at $150 a session. Now I do a free session, first of all, to get to know people and understand if I can help them, or I want to make sure that we're a good fit. Both you and if you would do a half an hour session, I want you to be comfortable with me just as much as I'm comfortable with you. But once we get there, and so I've set my pricing at $150 a session. If you know Dave Ramsey, who does a radio show and everything, if you contact Dave Ramsey's company directly and do a Zoom call with one of their coaches, it can be upwards of $350 a session. Now, yes, Jody.
The average right now, on the last call, they were saying it's $200 to $1,200 an hour.
Okay.
So that's
Yeah.
basing our prices on.
Yeah.
What are they doing? And
Yeah. And there was, it's been maybe a year ago, there was someone who had been doing it a couple years in Denver, I think, who had been doing really well. And I think she was up to $275 an hour. Just because she was a mom and had a lot of other priorities. And so she was getting a lot of clients and was being overwhelmed. And she kind of had to say, wait a minute, I need to charge more so I'm not, and then lower her number of clients.
I was going to make a comment to that. 4 months ago, we had Sarah Collins was speaking.
Yes, that was very good, yeah.
And for whatever reason, she said, because she's crazy, reached out to me. We've been meeting monthly, and to your point, don't undervalue yourself.
Yeah.
I do coaching too, and depending on the clients that I work with, it can be anywhere from 1 to 200. But that initial session is, what do you want to gain? What do you
Yeah.
want your end results to be? And what is the value of me being a part of that process? And that can help you determine where that dollar should be.
And I guess for you, Stacy, too, you can
Yeah.
look at, as you're starting your business, like, who is your competition? If you know that, and if you can research and find out what they are charging. If there is an association that you could go to, that they maybe could provide resources for you to, for a starting place for your consulting
What the
business.
local market is.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes situations like this and getting people to know about what your business is, and they can say, oh yeah, well, I did business with someone, because I'm thinking right off the top of my head, I have a good friend who, she has a marketing company, but they do a lot of CRM, and I'd be more than willing to talk to her about, well, what do you guys charge an hour for consultation with CRMs? And it's just making those connections and then seeing maybe how you fit into that.
Yeah, and oh, I'm sorry. Can I?
No, I
go-
was just gonna say that one of the reasons we have complimentary meetings is because I've realized, which I'm sure you have, is that we can't work with everybody. They're just, you know, we are interviewing, we're both interviewing each other. Can we work with them? Are they gonna listen? Or, you know, granted, we'll take the money, but as financial coaches, why are you paying me to, you know, give you advice that you're not gonna take?
Yeah, Jody and I may be in the same industry, but we're not competition. We're symbiotic, because there may be people who just don't connect with me, but they do with Jody, and vice versa. One other thing I was going to say is, in August I joined Centersphere, and Rhonda Armstrong was here. It's been a few months back, but she's moved on. And I found, just in going to the meetings, talking to some other people who are in coaching, and just getting to know them, is that helps a lot. What's that? They have a ton of different meetings.
Which ones are you?
What's that? I haven't joined yet. I'm kind of floating, trying to figure out a time to go that works for me, because with my cleaning business, I'm busy pretty much up until 1 or 2 o'clock. Now, book club, I can at noon. I have to make a few adjustments so I can make it at noon, but sometimes it's a little difficult because a lot of theirs are in the morning.
Do you know Aaron Ruth by chance?
The name sounds familiar.
When we talk, I'll give you.
Okay,
He
yeah.
was kind of a director for a short period of time of overseeing Centersphere.
Okay.
He may be a good resource.
When we
The one at
can,
Rock and Joe's, well, there's 2 there now, but the one that's there is.
we can get you information
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
Stacy, about that, just to, because I understand that you have an opportunity to go, like, you can visit.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
See if it's
Yep.
something that's for you, and then decide from there.
Yeah, you're
The
welcome to join.
financial-
You're welcome to join me as a guest. Next time I'm going to make a meeting, I'll let you know. And
And I can give you
the people, and the same as here as well. Through the book club, through the coaching, the Clifton Strength stuff that Brooke does, just getting to know Amy and her connections is.
Tell me about the book club. Do you have to be working here or how is it?
No.
Oh, no.
It's open to the public. We meet Tuesdays at noon. You do not have to have read the chapters to come. It's very
Will you be
low.
here?
We meet here, we meet in room 301.
You just bring in your own lunch thing?
Yeah, you can bring your lunch or,
Wait.
yep.
Yeah.
It's totally casual. Right now we're reading Atomic Habits by James Clear. We just started last week. And if anybody wants to be, first of all, we have a Facebook group you can join. It's called Do Business for Real Book Club. And we have a mailing list. If anybody wants to be on the mailing list to get the schedule updates, I can add you to that.
That's every Tuesday.
Yep. Well, sometimes we take a break in between books, but from now until October 4th, it will be every Tuesday, and we'll do Atomic Habits.
We had to take a break after Brene Brown.
Yeah.
It was too much for all of us.
That
We were,
was-
we were all.
It was a pretty heavy
It's a
book.
It was
Yeah.
very, we were all emotionally drained. But again, and we were just talking about how, I had mentioned how Brooke and Ray and I, after we went through that book club, how we talk differently to each other. And sometimes we joke about it, but one of the things that Brene Brown talks about is, this is the story I'm telling myself. So we would start conversations about a situation and we would say, this is the story I'm telling myself. Now that may be true, it may not, but this is what I have in my head. And it just, it put a lot of different pretexts to how we communicate with each other, how we communicate about different situations. So that has been very impactful, and Atomic Habits has started off to be a great book also, so.
Yeah, it's impacted me, the books that we've read, and like Brene Brown, one thing that I really appreciated about it was she talks about the importance in leadership of understanding emotional intelligence, like understanding what and one of the things that was, I found that I can incorporate into my coaching and even teaching is that the difference between shame and guilt. Guilt is you feel bad about a certain event. So let's say you made a bad car purchase, you spent too much, right? You overextended yourself and you feel bad about it. Or maybe you lose your temper with a spouse or a kid, and you go back and apologize. Yeah, never, right? That's you feel bad about an event. Shame is, I'm a horrible person because I yelled at my kid, or I'm never going to be that type of language. And I think how I'm going to kind of address that with clients, and because if you're just feeling guilt over maybe taking out too many student loans, I think we can deal with that. If it's shame, where you feel like a loser and things, that's probably above my pay grade. I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm not, that type of thing.
But it's
Yeah.
good to know that we all have those
Yeah, yeah.
tendencies.
And when you understand it, you can catch yourself then too. So yeah, it's been I've found the books interesting, and the discussion, like Brooke said, it's not, it's not like master's level literature. It's,
We've tried to come up with a different name, like this isn't your mama's book club, or, something
Yeah.
about, to be less threatening, because that's not our intention at all. Our intention is to build community and to be able to talk about common issues that
Yeah.
come across through the book. So.
Yeah, and one thing that I've found that I'm going to try to explore, and as meeting some of the people in here and the other business owners, and is that it's very, for me as a small business owner and people that I've talked to who do side hustles, it's very confusing how our household finances and our business finances are connected. Because the IRS makes us separate everything. Everything's separate. But in reality, it's all connected, because I've made poor choices on taking a cleaning client or those type of things that I probably knew I shouldn't have taken, but I was chasing the money because of a medical bill at home or something like that. And as Ann, my wife Ann, and I, as we've really focused on getting our household in order and communicating better and paying attention to detail at our household finances, I find I make better decisions with my cleaning business. So I yesterday in my Centersphere meeting, I talked about how I was just looking for a small, maybe office cleaning gig, maybe 1 to 2 hours a week, and I got somebody gave me said, hey, talk to this person. I don't have to contact them desperate, and if it doesn't work out, I don't have to take it, because we're in a different space at home, and Rick Comment, who's with Thrive Business Consulting, was here last week, and Rick has been doing some presentations about kind of the state of small business in Nebraska, and I believe, and we could talk to Rick to get, maybe he would be willing to share that here, but I think it's 2/3 of small businesses in Nebraska only last under 5 years.
3.5.
Okay, yeah, 3.5. And as I was listening to Rick talk, and Rick specializes in the business side of it, right? Is I wonder how many of those people, if they had their household in order, their finances, if they could have held on another 2 years to get to that sweet spot of getting over that hump.
Right.
You know, like people in the financial services industry where I worked, you know, if you're selling insurance or securities, those the benchmarks that I've always heard are the first year is real struggle. The kind of the 1 to 3 to 4 is survival. Right? And once you kind of get to 5, then you've kind of made it a little bit. But so what can those people do at home that helps them get through that 1 to 3?
To be successful in the business.
Yeah. Because if you think about it, if your family, if you're saddled with, you know, car loans, and maybe you're overextended on house, student loan debt, at that 2.5 years, maybe you're really, you know, you're scratching away, right? What is it? 3 years, I think, is normal for a business to create a profit, maybe, I think, before you.
Right in there.
Yeah.
Again, it depends on.
Sure, but so let's say you didn't have car debt. Let's say you had an emergency fund of 25 grand, and you didn't have your student loan debt, and you were communicating at home about money positively, and maybe that month you wanted to do 3 grand and you did 2 grand. Well, we can handle that, right? But if you don't have it in order, that $1,000 could make or break you continuing to do that.
Your business and
your business, or if you're in a commission-based business. And I don't think that's talked about enough, because when I've, you know, I took classes over, like I said, I took classes over here when I was kind of formally forming my cleaning business. You learn about bookkeeping and that type of thing on your business side, but nobody addresses what's going on at home. You know, they're two separate things.
Well, when Lynn Wyman was here, she talked about that it was $5,000 that there was a point, and it must have been right about that 3 years. Does that sound about right, Brooke? That she needed $5,000 to be able to make payroll. And this is Kid Glove, which is a huge marketing firm in Lincoln. And she went to her parents.
That's right, I remember watching that.
Asked for that $5,000, and she talks about that moment, and she looks back at that was a pivotal moment, that if she would have chosen, she could have made that choice to not go to her parents, and we wouldn't have this great marketing company that does amazing things for nonprofits and businesses in general, not only in Lincoln, but across the country. So that, it's very true about that.
Yeah, and even...
I remember that well, because she was still out, Kid Glove was just launched.
Yep.
And I was working with her at the time on that whole process. She was obviously the rest of leadership resources. And we had that discussion, and it was a launching pad, it really was. And then in that, she also surrounded herself with 3 really amazing people right then that were catalysts, but she needed that to be payroll.
Right.
Yeah, and so Jody and I kind of come from the Dave Ramsey tree a little bit, and he had his entree leadership, that side of his business, and that helped me when I was forming my business, just the basic nuts and bolts of it. And he talks a little bit about how they're connected, but not much. And there's other like leadership people like Zig Ziglar and Andy Andrews, those guys, but they talk about it in the, who has the wheel? Is that Zig Ziglar? I can't remember that. There's like 6 spokes or whatever that.
Oh, the wheel of life?
Yeah, and one of them is household finances, and then another one is business finances, like over here. But they're, you know, so that talks about it a little bit. What's that?
Paul J. Meyer.
Okay, yeah.
Well, thank you very much,
Sure,
Phil.
it's been great.
I want to respect everybody's time, and we are at the end of our hour, so thank you again all for coming. There are treats. Philip brought donuts, so please help yourself to that, and we look forward to next week. And I don't remember who's speaking next week. I'm putting you on the spot.
Scott with Nebraska Lincoln.
Oh, okay.
With SourceLink?
Source link. Yeah,
Okay.
I was like, that did not sound right.
I was like, okay, maybe it's something I don't know, but okay.
No, source link, Scott.
Ask
Yes, yep. So that will be great. That'll be a great opportunity to
know he was
learn about what
coming
they do.
He didn't tell me.
So now you know. Now you have
Now
a
I
week.
know. I'm gonna chew him out.
So thank you everybody for coming and have a great weekend and a great week.
Take extra donuts because we can't eat them at home. So please do.